We've been rocking since the Sandbox, man. Stop playing with my dog, Scuba Steve. He the man, got plans, bro, to give him what you need. Hot damn, from the court to the field, they elite. I'm saying why, yes, got the hot takes and loose, stay checking. Talking about all the highlights from alleys to interceptions, from tutties to dope receptions and fantasy week projections. And honestly think you gotta tune in to get the message. Let's go.
Since the Sandbox fans, today we are honored and privileged to be joined by Coach David Thorpe, the Godfather of Player Development. Coach, how are you doing today? Thank you for taking the time to be here with us.
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, and I was really excited to get this episode in the works. It's a very exciting time in the NBA, and I know you have inside scoop on everything going on, but outside of just getting the title of the Godfather of Player Development, we have to recognize husband, many years, father of two, executive director of the Pro Training Center down in Clearwater, Florida, NBA analyst for 10 years. That's an absolutely tremendous just have, as part of your journey. Along with that, you're a partner and analyst for True Hoop. You're an author. So thank you so much, Coach, for being here today. And I'm excited to learn a little bit more, about your background and how this journey, all got started. So let's just get right into it. Your home life is very important. And, when you're pursuing, professional dreams in excellence, it always starts, at home in your support system, because that's so important, right? So, you've been married for 3 decades. That's an absolutely tremendous accomplishment nowadays, especially with the world we live in today. Also a father of twins, so that's really cool. So, I just want you, reflect on that really quickly.
I'd be happy to. First, let me apologize, Stephen. I just said to you off air, I was referencing a guest that I just listened to, but it wasn't your show. I listen to so many pods, and I do so many pods, I get them confused. I apologize. Another pod I'm doing another time later this month. We all get to choose what's important to us. I don't know that I thought that I'd be family first guy the way I've been when I first was part of a family. I liked my parents and my brothers and sister. I was in a position early in my life, Stephen, where I had a choice of kind of looking and taking a college opportunity for a coach that is a big-time college coach right now. He was but he was a head coach back in this was the mid-'90s.
Okay.
And Lon Kruger and one of his other assistant coaches, Ron Stewart, got me an opportunity to interview, and I think I would have got the job. I was in my 20s, and my wife was ready to go, and a lot of my friends were struggling with their marriages when they were coaching in college. I was still coaching high school and having a lot of success with that. And
congratulations.
I just kind of had cold feet. I just didn't know if it was the right move, if I'd be happy, if she'd be happy. And our family was here. Both sets of our parents lived close by to us in Clearwater, Florida area. So I just thought maybe instead of doing what everyone else is doing my age, that's working the 5-star camps and the other all-star camps and Rick Pitino's basketball camp and Kruger's basketball camp, and I worked 10 weeks every summer doing basketball camps. That's all I did every summer. Yeah, that's what I did. I just got my car on Sundays and drove back on Fridays. Normally, I flew to the 5-star camps in Virginia and Pittsburgh. I flew to Georgia sometimes for some camps, but I drove to Pitino's camp in Lexington. That was a long drive. I drove to Pittsburgh a couple times. I drove to D.C. a couple times.
Oof.
And everyone was joining the college game, and I just thought maybe there's something else to do. So the whole Godfather of Player Development is really nothing more than I've just been doing it so long when no one was really doing it for our sport. They were doing it for tennis and golf. And I just thought maybe we can help players the way golfers and tennis players get help, whether they're professionals or not. I didn't envision pro players. I was doing middle school, mostly high school kids. Mostly boys, some girls, we had a few middle school kids, and it just kind of grew into, now I think I've had 99 NBA players, 100-something European players, a lot of EuroLeague and Eurocup guys, and then, I spent 10 years at ESPN. I didn't expect that, and then we formed our own media company, True Hoop, where I get to write about the game. Every NBA team has at least a few subscriptions to what our newsletter is individual, because individuals subscribe, not teams. And so all 30 teams have people that subscribe, every agent, pretty much every media member, which means a lot to me because it means what I'm writing, it matters. And so, 58, married 32 and a half years. My kids are 21 in college. Our twins. I didn't expect any of it. I definitely didn't expect to land my wife. She's way out of my league, was and is. I just was lucky that she was ready to date a nice man. I don't think she had dated necessarily when she was young. She was 19. I was 22. We were children. Okay. When I think about it, my daughter's the age my wife was when she married me at 21. Wow. So somehow it's all worked out, and I wake up, honestly, Stephen, I just told a young person I'm helping a little bit now as a teacher. She's 31. I told her today, I normally go to bed around 1 each morning, depending on how late the West Coast games go and if I need to watch them. I normally need about 5 hours of sleep most nights, and I literally think almost every night, I wish I could just wave a magic wand and have it be 6 in the morning and me being refreshed and ready. I love what I do.
Go. Yeah.
I can't wait to get in my office. I didn't expect this, but I'm really thankful that I have it.
That's awesome. And, I'm trying to establish, the same thing for myself. I started a podcast because when I was commuting, back and forth to college, I was coming home, I'm watching ESPN, NBA, NFL, and I'm like, oh, man, like it must be so cool to sit there and talk about sports, something that you're passionate about, something that you love to do. So that's why I decided to, create a podcast with my friends, and that's why we were called Since the Sandbox, because we were friends since the Sandbox. So I enjoy doing this, and being able to have someone of your stature, on the show absolutely means, the world to me. So once again, I appreciate you taking the time and sharing all that knowledge and wisdom. I mean, it always starts somewhere, right? I currently coach a little bit of high school baseball at East Boston High. We're coming off of the city championship. So a lot of work has to be done, after you have a successful year, right? You got the target on your back. Everyone's coming for you, but you need to find other ways to improve. So that's just, my little relatability to that. Obviously, your experience is a lot larger than mine. But, David, just want to, get to, when did having, this type of a career in basketball, really, come to fruition for you?
When I was coaching high school, we had success. I was able to develop a number of players that were very good. One of our players in high school went on to a very, very good college career and went to the Final Four, was a starting center, scored a bunch of points against Grant Hill and Duke in the Final Four. His name is Dimitri Hill. I had him all 4 years of high school. He was on the 94 Gator team, Lon Kruger's first team. Actually, Florida's first team to make the Final Four. The Billy Donovan era came later.
Wow.
And so I thought maybe I have some talent at this. But probably when I started working with Udonis Haslem, my first NBA client, and he stuck. He had a non-guaranteed deal with Miami. And then I was working with a college kid named Kevin Martin, who had 2 scholarship offers coming out of Zanesville, Ohio. And he spent his summers with me while he was a college student. And 2 years later, he was a first-round draft pick. And
wow,
it just kind of added up where it appeared like the curriculum we were using to help players helped. And then the biggest thing was, because I help players in season too, not just off season. When the players started calling me during the season for help, and I would say things like, "Well, just ask your coaches," and they would say, "I can't because if they know that I'm not confident at this, it may affect their fourth quarter decision to play me or not." And I can't trust the assistant
I never thought
coaches.
of it like that.
I didn't either. Never thought about it for a second. It's a very political game at that level, believe it or not. And so that's when I realized, there's a full-time business here. And then just through my relationships in the NBA, I got to know Chad Ford really well, the guru of the NBA draft for many years. He became a good friend of mine. And he called ESPN and said, there's a guy here who can write. I was a decent writer. I was a writer in college. My mom was a great teacher. She was a professional reporter before she had kids. Wow. And I interviewed 3 times at ESPN. Never expected that to happen. But I learned that writing is very cathartic for me, always has been. And I'm not a good writer. I'm not no one would ever read me and think I've been trained at writing, which I have not. I took a couple of writing courses in college. That's it. But I can't express and communicate what's happening on the court pretty accurately, apparently. And it's really helped me as a teacher and a coach, because my job as a coach is to help these guys understand how to play better. That's it. How do you build value? By playing better, winning more games, winning more possessions, really. And learning the game as a coach, and then also studying it as an analyst, that combination was super powerful for me. So I've had players, and even my son have said, like, Dad, you kind of see the matrix, don't you? And it's not a matrix. It's not that hard, especially when you're as old as I am. I turned 58 last week.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I do see a lot now, because how could I not? I'd have to be blind not to see a lot now. I've been studying this game for so long. I mean, I started coaching when I was 19 in my fraternity, and I started really coaching at 22 right out of college. So I've been doing this 36 years.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen the game of basketball grow, evolve, it change and adapt, over the years in a tremendous amount of ways. And we'll get into, the current NBA a little bit later, have
Sure.
a lot in store that I'm excited to dive in with. But, I want to talk about, True Hoop a little bit, because I think that's, really unique. You have that platform, you have, all those people connected and tuning in. So for someone that doesn't know, well, where can they, stream True Hoop, or how can they get access to True Hoop?
Yeah, so very quickly, the founder of True Hoop is a brilliant writer named Henry Abbott. He really is a writer. I'm just a coach that can write a little bit. He's a professional writer. And Henry started a blog, in the earlier 2000s called True Hoop. I was reading it. I didn't know who he was. I started talking to him via cell phone, really, before there were smartphones. And right when I joined ESPN in 2007, within a few months, they bought him. They bought his blog. And so he was on the True he was on the ESPN platform. He kind of took over our division, which had 90 some odd employees just on the basketball side. We had Mark Stein, Brian Windhurst, Tom Havastro, you name it, Jerry Adonde. We had everybody. Wow. And Henry was more or less ultimately kind of running it. And then we left together. I had done 10 years. He had done 10 years. We left together. And a couple years later, he called me and said, maybe we could do this ourselves now and not be with a big firm. And so I said, let's do it. That's fine. I'm watching the games anyway. I'm happy to write about it. I'm already watching the games. Doesn't take any more work, really. So really, True Hoop is, in a nutshell, mostly right now, it's what I'm seeing on the court. Like, for example, Monday we'll publish an article. It's a 2-part story about what separates bad teams from good teams on the defensive side of the court. We're focused initially on the Warriors, and then we'll open that up in part 2 to the other bad teams. Why are they bad? What's happening? How do you fix it? I've done 2 reports on Bronny James that have been probably our best sellers in terms of selling subscriptions. I've heard directly from someone that works with Bronny that both he and LeBron – well, I didn't hear it directly. I heard it indirectly from one intermediary who's friendly with the person working out, Bronny, who said what I wrote was accurate, and LeBron agreed. But I'll cover everything on the court. Henry will go off into tangents. He's really holding owners accountable. We have a lot of dark money coming in the NBA, illicit money, corrupt and corporate money, and we're concerned about it. So Henry will write more about that. My editor, Travis, he'll do fantasy stuff that's pretty interesting, and he's a brilliant writer. He might be the best writer of the 3 of us. But really, at least once a week, I'm writing about something on the court. And it could be X and O stuff. It could be inspirational stuff. As a coach, we're first in the business to inspire. That's in my book, Basketball is Jazz, that I wrote in 2017. I still believe that very much so. So if you're an NBA fan, or you're interested in quality storytelling, because of my editors, it's really not my talent. I can tell a good story now, don't get me wrong. All coaches can. But as a writer, I probably need help in doing that. I don't think I'm so good at that. But when my editors get done with it, it looks like I'm really a good writer. And they're good stories. You'll laugh. You'll be inspired. You'll learn a lot. The most important thing is we've got thousands, many, many thousands of subscribers who tell us that though they've never watched the game the same since reading True Hoop. They'll start seeing things they never even imagined. I wrote an article just maybe a month ago called "The Impossible Sink," and it's a play that you'll see every team run where they put a help defender in a catch-22, where they're convinced that they have to go chase some kind of over-the-top action with a screen, when really they need to be tagging a guy rolling to the rim and they get a dunk out of it. And so you have to sink down, but it's impossible because you're so busy worrying about the guy you're guarding. And now you'll see it. You can't not see it if you watch a game. If you read that article, you can't not see a dunk and think, oh, man, that was an impossible sink play. So,
I feel like I'm getting coached a little bit right now, honestly.
Yeah, and I'm happy to talk baseball. I don't know the Major League Baseball. My son was a better baseball player. He plays college basketball, but he was a very, very talented baseball player who ended up choosing basketball because he loved it more, although he was better at the other sport. And my favorite time in my life as a dad has been being a father to my baseball playing son, not the basketball version, because in baseball I could just be his buddy, his best friend, and his biggest cheerleader. But yeah, for this sport, my job is to help our readers just understand the game better and be delighted. In fact, let me reverse that. The job is actually to delight them with what they're reading and then also hopefully help them learn the game better. I just had a mom who's trying to learn the game better because her son, she lives in Toronto, she's a corporate executive. Her son is a very serious junior playing high school in the States. He'll be a college player, Division I player. And she is all in on basketball because it's the love language for her son. Mm-hmm. And so she signed up, and I was talking to her for a different reason, but she can't wait to read Troop because she wants to be able to talk to him more about the NBA, which is his favorite subject. That makes
awesome.
me very happy because I told her, you'll be able to have conversations he won't understand. He's going to have to read us because you'll be smarter than him now.
Yeah. So I gotta. You talked about Bronny a little bit. Is Bronny legit going to be one of the better prospects that we've seen come out of the collegiate level in quite some time?
We talked about this. So we do a podcast twice a week, typically Mondays and Thursdays, called True Hoop, and with Gerard Hector, he's our host and the producer, and we just talked about it. Maybe Bronny will be. John Gavoni was like a little brother to me for a long time. He's outgrown me now, but when he was at kind of a nobody, we were very, very close. And I love him. And he had Bronny in the top 10. I don't know that I would project him at that, but I also don't know the 2024 class like he does. But by all means, he's got a shot. He's really athletic. He's very strong. He's got room to grow physically. He's got room to grow as a scorer. He's not a great scorer now, in my opinion. That's why I probably would hesitate to draft him. He's more of the old school quarterbacking lead guard, the Jacques Vaughn kind of player, except he's a better shooter at this age than Jacques was. I knew Jacques when he was in college at Kansas. Really elite defender, plays the right way. He plays like a coach's son.
Yeah.
He really
wonder
plays
where he gets that from.
Yeah, right. He really plays under control. I love his game. I don't know if he'll be any good. He's going to be solid, but if his name wasn't LeBron James, if it wasn't Bronny James, it's impossible to imagine he'd be seen as a top 10 pick in a year. It is absolutely possible to imagine him as a first-round pick because he does have huge upside as a true lead. I mean, if you can draft a starter in the first round, you've done a good job. That isn't your goal in the lottery necessarily, but it probably should be. If you can just get a guy that can start for you within year 2, I mean, he can be better than Jalen Suggs.
Okay.
I mean, Jalen Suggs, we don't know if he's an NBA player or not.
Yeah,
Bronny can
you're
be
right.
better than that. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. I know that the draft is always so crazy. I mean, you see some guys that end up having, longer careers that get drafted on the back half of one. You have guys that get drafted inside the lottery that you're just like, where did we miss? Like, where did that disconnect,
I mean, Steven, we're going to have a 3-time MVP winner with second round.
That's right. You're right. Absolutely.
And then the guy that won 2 before that was number 15. He wasn't even a lottery pick. And the guy that thinks the best player in the playoffs is Kawhi Leonard. He went number 15. Right?
It's crazy when you think like that.
On and on about this, right?
Yeah.
So it's not about the player only. It's about the franchise that develops the player.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's a big part of this too.
100%. You hit the nail on the head there. But just with True Hoop, really quickly, was partnering with True Hoop and just helping bring that out there a little bit more. Was that a no-brainer for you?
Henry and I said this. We actually had our first annual dinner because of the pandemic, and all of our employees except for me live in New York. I live in Florida, near the beaches here in Clearwater, and
nice.
I'm lucky, but although I'm sick of the heat. I mean it's 80-something today.
Too hot.
Yeah, air conditioning. Are you in Boston?
I'm in Boston, but my family has a house in Naples, so I pop down there every winter.
Yeah, a couple hours south. So we were in New York for the All-Star break, and we had a big team dinner, my wife and I, and so we talked a lot about. I had a chance to speak to our group, and I said that my favorite comedian growing up, to this day, my favorite comedian is Richard Pryor. I owned. Okay. I used to own every album he ever had. I had every CD. Then after that, he did a lot of movies with Gene Wilder. You're too young to probably remember, but trust me, they were really funny movies. Silver Streak, a whole bunch. And I heard maybe it was Gene Wilder's daughter, but someone say like basically they were a love story between those two. One was a comic actor, one was a comedian. That's how it is with Henry and I. We developed a real love for each other as dads. My kids are just a little older than his. He has a daughter in college and his son is a junior in high school. And we just realized that every time we talked while we were both at ESPN, we always found 5 minutes to talk about our kids or our wives. He's married a long time too. And we raised our kids together that way in two different states. And so when he called me and said, I can get Troop name back from ESPN, I don't need anyone else to write more feature stuff initially. I can do that, but I need your eyes and ears to know what's going on in the court. Like the rest of us are faking it. This is what he told me. All of the writers that you have mentored and well, he told me as friends, and Mark Stein, my dear friend that was at New York Times after that, now he has his own Substack. He had told me too, we're not really watching the game when we're covering the game. We're talking to people and featuring stories, but the game itself, we're not coaches. We have to talk to other people like you. And so Henry said, I need someone that he's like, I'm building like our own CIA. I need to know what's really happening on the ground, and I'd like for you to do that with me. And so I knew that I would never work again as a writer probably for a media company. I was just going to focus on my basketball businesses. And I have another business I just started I'll tell you about in a minute that's, I think, really interesting for basketball people and sports fans in general. But I knew that I didn't mind writing for myself, and so I'm an owner. I have equity in the company. And so that's been really great that we can build this ourselves, publish how we want to publish, what we want to publish. We call ourselves kind of like the New Yorker for the NBA. We're not trying to do a million articles. We just want to write really smart stuff. So I don't have to write every day. I have to write smart stuff every week, sometimes 2 a week. And our podcasts are quick, pithy stuff. We have I don't do this, but anytime anyone's writing a book now, they come on our show. We've kind of become the go-to place for every new author writing about a basketball book. And so that's pretty cool.
Debut. Yep. Nice. That's awesome. So let's get into that. Basketball is jazz. I want you, share, when and why did becoming an author, become something that you wanted to take into action?
Oh, I had no idea. Other than I was a big reader. My dad passed last January. Until maybe the last 10 years of his life, he was still an avid reader. And so was I. Read typically 3 books a week. Never, well, not many sports stuff. And so what happened is in, I want to say 2006, the IMG training academies fired their basketball coach and asked me to bring my pros. So they have high school, they still have big time high school programs there, but they like their pros, the pros that come in the summer, kind of like the face of the franchise, but really the business is the high school kids. So they asked me if I would bring my pros down there. They were coming to Clearwater. And so here I am driving. That was an 80-minute drive each way all summer, 4 or 5 days a week. They gave me a place to stay if I wanted to, but my kids and wife were here. I just came home. And so I felt like I was wasting a lot of time in the car. And so I started recording. I had a little recorder. This was early, 2007, 2006. Like I said, you couldn't talk into your phone. It was just a BlackBerry.
Phone like that, yeah.
I just had a BlackBerry. So I started recording chapters in my phone, and then I didn't think about it for 5, 6, 7 years, and I realized, you know what? I had everything translated. I did it myself, or my wife did it, and I realized that about 50 chapters, just 1-2 page chapters, lessons and stories. And I thought, I need to get 100 stories and lessons, and then I'm going to publish it. And so that's what I did. I got 107 chapters, I think. I've got 50 for my next book.
Another one coming.
Yeah,
nice.
I've got 2. I don't know when I'm going to get to it. I have a lot of. I don't have a lot of free time, but I'm going to get to it. I have Basketball is Jazz 2, and then I have a book. I'm waiting for my kids to get out of college. I have a book called Parenting is Jazz, which is just. They're just memoir. It's just love letters to my family. I mean, even Basketball is Jazz, love letters to the game that pays for our house. Our first dog we got when our twins were 5. I named him Spalding after the ball that pays for our mortgages and everything else. Yeah. And I always told my wife when Spalding passed, maybe 4 years ago now. I said to my wife, if we get another dog, we're gonna have to name it Wilson. If they changed basketballs to a Wilson, and they did.
Wilson, yeah. Yeah.
So we have another dog named Wilson now. Yeah.
Nice.
And so
that's awesome.
That's what the book's about. It's stories from my high school players. It's stories from my NBA players. It's lessons that I've learned, whether it's shooting, layups, ball handling. So I'm happy to tell you that I've had dozens and dozens of, if not hundreds, but probably more dozens of coaches from other sports reach out to me. One woman coaches crew at an elite, probably the best school in Florida it's an all-girls school. She coaches crew, and she said she read the book and really helped her. I have a girls tennis coach. He's won multiple state championships, I think, in Georgia. He's a financial planner and a real estate developer, but he coaches high school girls, and he's reached out to me. And that book is something that really taught him to be better as a coach. There's a surgeon in Miami who works with the Dolphins and the Buccaneers and the Miami Heat. He was their surgeon for many years. He was buying the book every year for all the basketball coaches in Miami. Every year if they were new, because he felt like it could really help them coach better. So, yeah, that means a lot to me that coaches felt – I didn't write it for coaches, but it really is a book for coaches and parents. And then a number of young people have read it because they love the game. And many of them I've coached. So they felt like, let me read what Coach Thorpe says. I always tell them, you'll like it least because you already know all these stories. I've been telling my players these stories for years. But, yeah, it's really a love letter as much as anything to the game that's meant so much to me.
But there's so much I feel like that you can learn, through perspective and experience. And I feel like, that's exactly, what you're sharing there and more. So I'm going to have to get myself a copy and do a little reading. I mean, I always tell, my players and my young student athletes that, after high school, after college, you have to continue to evolve and learn and continue to develop. I mean, it doesn't just stop because, the education structure has changed or, there's a lack of, you know what I mean? There's always, so much more, and especially in such an evolving and adapting world with all this development in technology and how the game of sports is changing and how, you even interact with people is so different nowadays. So, absolutely incredible, and I'm sure that everybody, has learned a lot from Coach Thorpe. But, Coach, we're going to get into, your pro training center down in Clearwater, Florida. So, just want you to, reflect on what an average, off-season or in-season is like at the training center.
So, there's two separate things. So, in the summer, we used to work with athletes more on everything. They have to play better. They've got to read the game better. I always say high school and college players play the game, pros read the game. So we have to teach our players how to read the game. We have to get them the requisite skills to excel at reading the game. Ball handling, finishing at the rim, every kind of finish possible, every kind of shot you see, we drill. We get them in shape. We'll get them ready. I used to do extensive pre-draft training. I used to have 15 players every year in the draft. One year I had 6 players drafted, which was fun. And stressful because 9 didn't get drafted. That sucked.
Sure, yeah.
And so, I don't do it as much now. I used to not travel at all, and now my kids are grown. So last year I was in L.A. with a bunch of players in the pre-draft, helping another coach out. This summer I was also in Orlando, so I'm working with an all-star level player. He is an all-star, and some other guys because that's where they lived. And again, I don't mind moving around a little bit. But I think that's where I'm best now, is overseeing the actual trainers themselves, as opposed to me having to get out there and do it. Not that I can't help them. I don't play anyway. But the whole idea is to build value in their careers. So off season, it's developing a better idea of how to be successful. And then in season, it's holding them accountable to that vision that we have. How can you play better defense? How can you be more impactful offensively? How do you read defensive coverages as a big, as a guard? How do you navigate screens? The stuff I see during the season, like I help a lot of players in season. So I'll keep a running track of everything I want them to work on in the offseason, whether it's with me, whether it's I'm coaching their coaches. For the All-Star break, I have a couple of players that I help in the G League. When they were on break earlier on from the G League, after their showcase that went to the regular season, they went home, and I talked to their trainers about what I think they should do. And I populate that during the season, and then in the offseason, I'll edit that, because I can't do everything for most of them. I've got to pick and choose 3 or 4 things to really focus on, how to be more effective at the game. And that's what I do all the time.
So did you teach Mac McClung all those dunks?
I did not. I would never teach anything beyond what you can do in a game. I didn't watch the dunk contest. I did see the highlights. It was impressive. Yeah, I'm rooting for him. But, we definitely work on dunking. We'll do 2 dunk workouts a week. And so in any one workout we do, they might dunk as much as 125 times in a workout, and then 0 more or less the other days. Because for any time we go hard, we'll always do a quiet day the next day or an off day. Always. Mm-hmm. It's I work with scientists on that. We want to make sure we maximize their summer and minimize any chance for an injury risk. So we never go hard 2 days in a row in terms of jumping. We might do running days 2 times in a row hard, depending on what we're preparing him for. The player I had this summer that's an all-star, his next game, I was with him from all month of June and July. His next game was October.
Oh, wow.
But if I was working with – because he was an all-star. If I was working with a guy in the summer league, that's different. So we have to get them ready for summer league, get them in shape and all of that. So every player has their own kind of unique curriculum to follow.
That's interesting, and I'm sure that's like a lot to juggle too, because those players obviously want to come and get their work in, but outside of training, they obviously have priorities and responsibilities, family, and other business endeavors. But when was starting the training facility like something that you were just like, all right, this needs to happen, I'm ready to do this? Yeah.
So basically, when I turned down this college job back in I want to say it was maybe 1993. Were you even alive then?
96.
Okay. So you weren't even alive then. So I was, high-level high school coach, and definitely had a coaching career in college if I wanted it. And when I chose not to do it, I had to do something. I didn't want to teach anymore. That really wasn't working for me, and it was hard to make a good living. Impossible, really. And so I started working players out one-on-one for $25. And I was doing TV locally. We're very good local television for high schools. I knew the producer. He asked me to do it. I would travel around our area where I live. You can drive 45 minutes north-south and 30 minutes east-west and still be in the same county. It's a big county, Pinellas County.
Yeah, that's massive.
And also very populated. 16 public schools, a lot of great private schools. So I was doing the game of the week. And as I bounce around, parents who knew me from camps that I would do in the summer or that I coached against them when I was a coach, they would just ask me, hey, what do you think you should work on? And I just said, I can do this. And so my goal was to make $400 a week. That's my goal. I'd done the math for what our rent was, my wife and I. I'd just been married a few years. She had a full-time job. With no kids, thankfully, or I'd been in trouble. But I ended up growing it to 75 players strong, a lot of D1 players, a lot of very, very good players. We took our team once and won an AAU national championship. We added a couple studs for sure, but my players were the guts of the team, And so I knew I was doing a good job. I was taking kids that their own coaches were telling them, you're lucky to play Division II or III. And after training with me a couple of years, they were signing high major scholarships and playing well. So that's when I knew, okay, this can work at the high school level. The problem was their coaches were either great because they realized I don't need the credit. That's what the money's for. I was getting paid to help their players, and they were sending players to me. I had a McDonald's All-American that went to Duke that his coach sent him to me because he knew that I wasn't trying to steal his thunder. He was the one getting the wins. I was just coaching up his guys. I think I trained 4 of his starting 5 that went to 3 Final Fours in a row. And, so that coach was smart. Other coaches were very provincial and didn't, even though they weren't helping their players get scholarships or developing them at all, they would say to a player that I was training, hey, did you learn that at the academy? Like if they turn the ball over, did you learn that with, because I used to call it the basketball academy. Did you learn that from Thorpe? He didn't say that to my studs that he was coaching. Yeah, he would say it to the second string. And I realized I'm hurting my players. That's not fair. And so I stopped doing it. But some agents remembered that I was doing it because I was traveling in the summer to the 5-star camp, whatever. And I brought 60-some-odd people to a 5-star camp once from my academy. And they were all really good players. Some of them were great. All were good. We trained them all week, year-round, every week. And some agents started saying, we need help training our guys for the draft. And so I wasn't the first guy to do that pre-draft training. I was one of the first. But I definitely wasn't the first because they brought me in when an agency lost a player and who's now a GM of a team. And the agent told me, they asked the player, why didn't you sign with us? Like, we had you. We had some great players. How did we not get you? And he said, I wanted to sign with you, but you didn't have any pre-draft training, and the agency I signed with did. So that's when they called me and said, can you do pre-draft training? And then from there I realized that I don't want to specialize in any one agency. And then I realized I don't need to just specialize in pre-draft either. And so that's when things really kind of took off.
Yeah, and I mean, you talked about some of the plays that you touched a little bit. You mentioned Kevin Martin earlier. I also have to, Udonis Haslam you talked about, Luol Deng, Drew Holiday, Corey Brewer, Joakim Noah, Omri Caspi. Those are some of the guys that when I was growing up, I definitely saw. And, Udonis Haslam is still on the bench for the Miami Heat. So
he's my first one.
Was he? He was your first one?
He was my first one. That he not for the pre-draft he was my first NBA player, but I had him before he was in the NBA. He was playing for the Heat and then the Spurs summer league teams. No one knows this except his agent and Udonis and maybe his wife Faith. He was dating Faith at the time, but he wasn't offered anything beyond a summer league spot for the Heat in Miami. Actually, the summer league was in Orlando. He and LeBron were rookies together in that summer league. I went to that summer league where LeBron was a rookie for Cleveland, and then I took him to Boston, and then we went to Boston for the Spurs summer league team, and they won the championship. They were the undefeated team. They didn't have the playoffs, and then because he played well for the Spurs, his agent was able to leverage that to get him a deal with the Heat, non-guaranteed, league minimum. I think it was $330,000 for undrafted guys signing minimum deals. That was made good, I think, January 10th of 2004. And he made it.
Wow.
And then he came back the next summer. The goal with him was rebound and play defense to make the team, learn to make jumpers to get paid. So year one, we focused on rebounding defense. And I didn't know what I was doing. That's what I thought. Turned out I was right. He made it his first year. He couldn't shoot. We really worked on his shooting the next year. He was a great mid-range shooter. And then the game changed on him. And once a lot of these players have wives and kids, they don't come back typically. That's changing for me now since I'm willing to move a little bit. I don't like talking about the players I work with now. I'm not one of these guys that likes to celebrate. To me, there's a lot of guys who are using their players to make themselves famous. That's fine for them. It's just not what I do. I had a player in the NBA All-Star game. I had a player in the G League All-Star game. I had a player in the Rising Stars game this weekend. But I don't talk about who they are, and especially with the players that haven't made it yet. Once they've made it, I always tell this story. I was talking to a GM of a young player I was coaching, first-round pick, but he wasn't any good at first. And the GM couldn't have been more disrespectful to me. This was many years ago when no one knew who I was. When he signed his big extension and was their best player, they invited me on the team plane. I didn't go. I didn't take the trip, but I don't need that BS. I'm gonna stay behind the scenes. I don't. The head coaches tend to know if I'm helping the player. Their staff knows. I mean, most of them subscribe to our newsletter. They know who I am. But it's not about me. The players have to have the confidence that they can get help from me and not get any hate from their assistant coaches. I'm not a threat. I've turned down head coaching jobs in this league. I've turned down GM jobs in this league. That's not what I want to do. And so they have nothing to worry about from me. I'm doing my businesses. And I'm more comfortable that way, where the players can focus on the relationship with their teams. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to talk to head coaches and assistant coaches who are working with these guys. But they never have to worry that I'm going to be writing about them on Instagram, writing about them on Facebook or Twitter. These are private individual situations, and I don't take them public.
No, that's awesome that you value that, because a lot of people in today's world, with the way the media is, they don't. And, I feel like, that's what really, sets you aside. But when you just, we talked about Udonis, a little bit more in depth. When you look at him and, like, the career that he's had and what he means to the Miami Heat over the past 2 decades, the type of leader that he is, who he is, to his teammates, I feel like a lot of that has to reflect, with where he learns. So, I definitely, have to credit that, a lot to you, Coach.
I would love to take credit for it. It's probably not fair. I'm happy to say that I helped him make the team for sure. I'm happy to say that his dad came up to me. His dad since passed away, but he came up to me at a game one time. He had never met me before. This was later in year one, I think, his rookie year, and he clearly made the team. It might have been year 2. I don't really remember. It was a long time ago. But he shook my hand. We were in the garage below the arena where all the players' cars were, and Udonis was going to take me out to dinner after a game, whatever. And the dad shook my hand and said, Coach Thorpe, it's nice to meet you. You're the man who gave my son a game. Now, he's not right. I did not give him a game. I enhanced his game. For sure I did. Mm-hmm. He was amazing in college. He was the winningest Gator of all time when he graduated. But it wasn't enough to make the league. Udonis is I think he's ready to be a head coach. I never think that, by the way. I never think a player should go right from the bench as a player to the head coach of a team. I've never once thought that. In fact, I often think that they should be coaching the G League first. Chauncey Billups, Steve Nash. I don't like that. I think our
Jason
sport
Kidd
is too hard. You need to learn how to be a coach. He's the exception. He should be. He needs to hire a veteran next to him. I have no idea what X's and O's are like. His intellect is beyond reproach. He's played for Stan Van Gundy, Pat Riley, Billy Donovan, and Eric Spoelstra. Come on. And Frank Martin. And Frank Martin there at Northeastern, who went to the Final Four in South Carolina, who was a longtime buddy of mine. That's how I met Udonis, is through Frank, when they were in high school together. I mean, there's never been a better coaching. No player ever has had better coaches than him, ever, going back to high school. Like, it's just not possible who he's had. The way he carries himself, the way he gets guys to compete, his willingness to learn, his willingness to hold guys accountable, I think will be very good. I don't remember this, Stephen, but my longtime assistant, who's now an assistant with the Pelicans, named Ryan Pannone, has often told the story that a player came late to our gym. Ryan worked for me for 14 years. And Udonis kicked him out and said, "You don't disrespect Coach Thorpe this way. No one shows up late to the gym." I mean, I vaguely remember it. It's just 19 years ago, probably.
Yeah.
And my kids were 2, and I had twins, and so you're busy as hell with that. But that sounds like Udonis. That's
awesome.
I remember a player telling him one time he was going Bentley shopping. He fired his agent. The new agent he was going to hire took him Bentley shopping. And Udonis said, "Can I cuss on the show?"
Yeah, do your thing. Do your thing.
He said, "You dumb motherfucker. You're on a second round, non-guaranteed deal, Bentley shopping. Your agent sounds like a clown."
Yeah.
How about the guy that represented you that got you the 2-year deal as a second-round pick when you weren't even invited to Portsmouth, which is true. That's the guy you should have stayed with, not the guy that took you Bentley shopping.
No,
and I was at breakfast with them both. It was really funny. He's a truly unique individual, and I think he'd be he doesn't have to be a coach if he doesn't want to be. He's the highest paid assistant coach of all time now. Yeah. No assistant coach gets paid what he gets. That's what he does.
You're right.
And so if anyone's earned the right to the privilege of getting their own team right off the bench as a player, it's Udonis.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all that. That insight means a lot to me. Coach, we're going to get into, your time with ESPN and just being, an analyst a little bit. And, that's something, when you're speaking, through sports, and whether that's, on a podcast, because that's something that caters to, individuals a little bit more, or whether you're working for, a sports and media network. There's always, a preparation process. So, I want you to enlighten me to the best of your abilities on what it's like to, really be, an analyst, and a lot of that prep work that had to be done.
My 10 years at ESPN were amazing. I don't remember a single bad day. The people there were incredible. I will tell you this. I wouldn't even call them competitors now because we just have a newsletter and they're ESPN. I don't feel competitive with them. And I have some really dear friends who are still there. Some of their best writers are there still. They never once told me to write anything. Never once suggested there's an agenda. Never once, and I'm telling you, I can speak for every writer there was there then, which I think was their heyday. Really, I was part, I think, of the dream team covering sports. There's never been a better NBA group than we had back then, from like 07 to 17. No one ever told us to write about LeBron or what to write about Kobe, nothing like that. One of our editors, Dr. Jack Ramsey, the legendary Dr. Jack Ramsey's son, Chris, was one of the guy who hired me. We had amazing people, and they just want us to be right. They want us to be smart, and it forced me to really focus on the league and not just a player or two or three. I had to know about all 30 teams. I did a rookie report for most of those 10 years, so I had to cover all the rookies every week. I had to write something, and yeah, I was doing Sports Center a bunch, and ESPN News hits, live and on a camera, sometimes remotely, sometimes in studio. Yeah, it was fun, but it's people always think I have this, incredible job. It's hard. It's hard to know what's going on at 30 teams. It's hard to know what's going on with a lot of players. I probably could name you the starting 5 and maybe the top 2 bench players of every team. I definitely used to be able to do that. I'm a little older now. My bandwidth is shrinking. But I normally focus more on the better teams anyway, the ones that are relevant, the playoff teams and so forth. But I really had to know a lot about the game, and it forced me to pay attention all the time. And I left in part because my kids were at an age in high school where I needed to be at their events at night. And I wanted to be at those events and not have to watch games every single night. I started working more with European players in the EuroLeague so I could work during the day and be off at night to watch my son and daughter's stuff. And now I don't have to do that anymore. So with True Hoop, I'm back to watching games. I have four TVs in my office, which is next to my house. Nice. People think it's like a cool, sports den. No, it's a place of work.
Business.
Where I am right now,
absolutely.
Talking to you is my writing room. I have maybe 400 square feet of a writing room where I have my PC and my keyboard and my microphone and my O-ring behind the PC that lights me up. Otherwise, I'm not a pretty I'm never pretty to look at, but I'm really bad in the dark.
Stop it.
And then the other room, I have my 4 TVs where I was last night watching 3 games at the same time. And that's what I do 6 nights a week typically. Some nights it's easier. I might have a game just 7 to 9. That's it, 7 to 9:15. I watch G League games as well, depending on who's playing and who what players of mine maybe are in it. I only watch college from my son's teams. My son plays at Florida State, so I watch all of his games.
Congratulations!
He loves it. And then I do help a number of college kids just as a mentor. I've got young people that are NBA worthy players who've reached out for help one way or the other. And so I don't tend to watch them live, but I will watch them on Synergy. And the ESPN experience has been really good in that it just opened me up to a bigger world. And I'm a member of the media now. I never thought I did it in college. I wrote for UPI, which back then was the counterpart to AP.
Okay.
And so I started doing sports radio way back then in the 80s when there was only a few sports radio shows. And actually covered football more than anything, college football. And, it's I've been doing this a long time now, and I like it very much.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, for sharing all that. And, it definitely is a lot, like, especially when you consider how, like, NBA rosters are usually, around 12 or so, depending on the team in the scenario. But, those top 7 players, being able to learn about them as they're rookies, I feel like it makes you a little bit more intrigued, as their career develops, their successes, their highs, their lows, their journey. And obviously that caters to a lot of your basketball knowledge. But I think what that caters to more is your work ethic. It is a lot of work. And I do a podcast where I put out, a couple of shows a week, and that's just, on top of whatever I do, for a living. But it's something that I'm passionate about. But when it becomes your work, and it's something that, sometimes can become overwhelming with work, right? And there's a lot that comes along with it. I don't think, people always realize the stress of the importance of that work and how thorough it really has to be, especially, when you're making opinions or predictions, or you're stating facts about people. You have to have the film, the tape, and the ideas to follow that up.
The data. I'm a big believer in data, and so I do study the metrics every day. I'm studying metrics, looking at charts and graphs and just lists. You're exactly right, Steve. And on the work side, I don't see it as work. To me, it's fun, but there's no question that it's work. And people, I've often been asked on podcasts, like, what don't people understand about the NBA? And my answer has been and will continue to be just how hard it is to be successful in this league, how much work and film studies required. My players normally will call me as soon as their games are over. They get notes before the game begins. They get clips every game, before the game and after the game, of what's going on. I had a player last night play. I thought they called 3 bad fouls on him. And so I sent him those clips, and I said, go to your coaches. It is an NBA team, and ask them, did you do anything wrong? Are these just bad calls because you're young?
Yeah.
Because I don't see anything wrong, but if there's something wrong, we have to fix it. You had 3 fouls in a quarter. Like, we can't do that.
Yeah.
But I want to extrapolate a little bit. I've just now launched a new business where we're helping high school players who think they can play in college, and we agree, find a scholarship.
Okay.
It's not cheap. It's not a cheap business. You have to pay our company a good amount of money, but the goal is to save $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 over the course of 4 or 5 years as a college player. And we're doing it for basketball initially. I call it our food truck. We just have a little food truck. We're helping kids get to college. We've been doing it for years for free. I've been helped many, dozens of players the last 4 years get scholarships when they had no offers coming out of high school, and we've helped and found them scholarships or financial aid. At Division II level and beyond, it's typically financial aid, or often financial aid anyway. Division III, it's all financial aid, no scholarships, and same as NAIA, and junior college is a mixture. And so what I'm doing is mostly helping the players and the parents understand how hard they have to work to get better at basketball. They're not getting a look from colleges. Well, you got to work harder and smarter. So that's my role. Same thing I do for my NBA players. The same curriculum I do for them, I can water it down and give it to the high school players. They're going to get the same kind of training that my pros get. And then my partner is the one calling colleges, emailing colleges nonstop. You have to work and work and work. Draymond Green, Stephen, had an amazing quote last week before the All-Star break. My partner and I, Gerard Hector, and I talked about it on our show last week, True Hoop. He said, he was talking about the Warriors' struggle with defense. It's the feature of my article coming out Monday. He said, we think it's just going to come, meaning defense. It's just going to come. He said, nothing's coming. Nothing's coming. We have to go get it. I mean, it's a metaphor for all of us, for sure. Nothing is coming. We have to work for everything. There are exceptions, of course. The Bronny James of the world and maybe the top 10% of the players in college don't have to work anymore. They've already done the work to get the offers that they're getting.
For sure.
That doesn't mean they can stop working to succeed in college.
No, you're right.
That's not the case. But for everyone else, you got to go work for your scholarship. Now, maybe at some point when the team says, oh, we like you, now they'll start recruiting you. But you have to work to get them to want you. And in most cases, you need help. And unfortunately, most of our high school coaches just aren't going to do it. They're not going to work with you on how to play better, and they're not going to work their extra hours to get you placed anywhere. And that's why we decided, we can form a business. We're helping all these kids for nothing. I don't want to work for free anymore. I've done it my whole life. I've worked for money on the coaching side. On the placement for scholarships, I've never made a dime ever. Nor have I ever tried to take a job for getting a guy a scholarship. That would never happen. So now we have a business doing it, and we got our first client yesterday. We're not even up in a business yet. Like, I haven't even signed all of our forms. But a mutual friend knew we were doing this. She had a mom call me, and very smart woman, and she was like, she wanted to sign up immediately, and her son plays at a big time prep school, and I said, why do you want to pay us? It's 5 figures. It's not cheap. Why do you want to pay us? And she said, your insurance. My son's dream is to play in college. I think his college coach his high school coach is gonna help, but I don't know. He's the only son we have playing high school sports. I want someone like you and your people in my son's life to challenge them, to motivate him, to inspire him, and also to teach him what to work on. Like, for example, when I mentioned our athletes are not going to be drinking soda, they're not eating fried food, they're not eating dessert. She said, "Oh my goodness, I need you to tell my son that." There you go. Yeah. I've got water in a glass right here.
What? Nice.
Yeah. Now, I may have a cocktail tonight. It's an off night for me. I have a date with my wife. But during the day, it's water and turmeric ginger tea. It tastes terrible, but it's good for me. My son, he probably had 2 sodas. My daughter, same thing. She was a dancer. But they don't want to hear their parents say that. They'll listen to me. I'll just tell them. I have a player, as an example, an NBA player. I asked him when he first got drafted and signed this guaranteed deal. I said, "Do you take charges?" And he said, "Maybe I took 2 in college." I said, "Well, do you want to make Kyle Lowry money? Because I think he could be a Kyle Lowry type of player." He said, "Yeah." Okay. I said, "Well, you got to do Kyle Lowry things. Kyle Lowry takes charges."
Yeah.
He took in one fourth quarter of the game. He took 2, and his dad called me. He's like, "Thank God for you. I love you." He told me twice, "I love you." I could never get my son to take charges, and you got him to do it. Like, he looks for them. Well, you want to get Kyle Lowry money? What choice do you have? So that's the business we can be in, but it takes work. There's nothing coming. You have to work. And so because of my age and experience, I think players will listen, whether the high school players, whether they're NBA All-Stars, they'll listen to me because it's a curriculum that's always worked in the past. And because of my analyst job with True Hoop, I'm always paying attention to what guys are doing now. So my game is always evolving as a coach and a teacher. I'm teaching. I didn't used to teach step backs in the what I call the second box, which is an area of the paint. I do now. I don't like them stepping back to 20 feet, but I don't mind them stepping back from 8 feet to 12 feet to get the shot off. We do a lot of work to get that shot. So I'm always evolving because the game's evolving.
That's awesome. And I can't wait to learn more about, this business endeavor. I mean, we might have to get you back on the show to talk a little bit more about it, but I think that there should be, a lot more people trying to do that, right? Because if you want to play in college, like, your goal is to play at a D1 school, and a lot of those schools, whether you're a top recruit or not, it costs, a pretty penny, and there's a lot that comes with it besides, living at school and paying for tuition. I mean, some people have to get up and change, countries or move across the country to really do all that. So I think that's absolutely genius, and I honestly can't wait to learn more about it. Thank you so much for sharing, your newest business endeavor. But why do you, speak to groups, to coaches, to players, to high school students, to college students? Why is that something that you choose to do? Because it's not something that you have to do. But I feel like, the person that you are and who we're learning, that you've been throughout your career, I feel like that's something that really resonates with you. So why does that stand out?
Well, there's 2 things. So I've done some corporate speaking, and you have to pay me for that. And so that's fun. And I like learning from executives, and I think they have a lot to learn from us about team building. I'm supposedly a skill developer, although I never called myself that. But the reality is I know how to develop their game within the context of a team. And that's the nature of our sport in basketball. We call it basketball as jazz for a reason. My book was named that for a reason. You're connected to everyone on your court with you. But why I still speak to teams that are young is just to stay connected. I used to wear a thicker shadow. It's just so freaking gray now. And I definitely feel old compared to them. And I've never felt that before. I mean, when I was coaching at 22, everyone thought I was like the young Rick Pitino. That was really meaningful to me. Howard Garfinkel said that to me. He's a pretty famous guy, 5-star. I looked the part. I was 22. I think I met Garf when I was 25. I probably looked 18. I couldn't grow a beard if I wanted to. Now it's easy. But I looked like Santa Claus. I was growing it out last winter. I'm like, geez, I look like I could be a Santa Claus. I got to stop doing that. But it keeps me young. My business is talking to players all the time. Young players today will say facts and bet. Okay, bet. Facts all the time. I know that from talking to them. My kids don't talk that way. They're starting to a little bit now, my own children. But I don't need to have them adjust to my thinking and talking. I need to adjust to theirs. They'll hear me plenty talk like an adult. Because I don't talk like a child. I don't say facts. I just know what they're saying.
We're not saying bet.
Yeah. I remember the greatest, no joke. I had a high school kid tell me once, one of my son's teammates referred to me as the GOAT. Now, the reason why he referred to me as the GOAT is because I was coaching NBA players and he was a junior in high school. I had no idea what that meant. No clue it was a compliment. None. But so it's also good for me. It sharpens me. Motivating young players. The last couple of years I've been helping a young coach. I mentored a young coach that was coaching in high school in Pittsburgh, outside of Pittsburgh, in Pennsylvania. And maybe 3 times a year, he would put me on a Google Meet and with his whole team, and like before a big game. And I would talk to them, and that was super fun. And hearing what they had to say and just trying to motivate them, it keeps me young. My dad died when he was 81 last year, and he could not have coached. He retired just the year before that. He was an old man, and I'm hoping to get there. I hope I get to be a really old man. I have a lot that I still want to do. But until then, I need to feel alive, and that helps me talking to young people. It keeps me physically strong and active, mentally focused.
Yeah, for sure. And impact is something that's immeasurable, right? And we're a podcast out of Boston, but I grew up through community centers. I lost my dad when I was in the 7th grade, so that was a challenge that I had to really overcome. And that's something that can define people, or you can use it, as motivation to become, the person that you want to be. And, I grew up in community centers and boys and girls clubs, with rec teams and all of that. And I might have been able to play, college baseball. I was a pretty good pitcher, coming out of East Boston High, but I wanted to do something that was gonna have a bigger impact. So, with creating a podcast, I always felt like, a platform is something that you need to use not only to have a presence, but to help create that impact, that reach, and to continue to inspire. I feel like especially in today's day and age, inspiring and being a leader is something, I don't want to say that's frowned upon, but most people choose not to because it's difficult. So as part of a podcast, every single year, we've had this podcast for just over 3 years now, but every single year around Thanksgiving and Christmas, we always do community can drives and community toy drives. So
awesome. We've
gathered over 3,500 canned goods and over 750 toys in that, small span, and just giving immediately back to our community, local soup kitchens and food shelters. And that's just what us small people can do. So if everybody came together to do that, that's just something that we think people should be doing, just as part of living, So that's something that absolutely, means a lot to us at the podcast. So we talk sports, but being involved and being a presence, being a leader, is something that we try and, really emulate with all of our kids and my players that I coach specifically.
Yeah, I really love that. But I'll take issue with one thing. You're not a small person. Or let me rephrase it. We're all small people. We're just one individual, each of us. And my dad went in his final 3 months. He was mostly in a hospital, walking distance from my house. He lived 6 minutes away. And so I never walked there, but I could have. I've walked by that hospital many times when he wasn't in there. And because I was the closest one to him, I have a brother who's a doctor, and he was really his caregiver virtually. He lives in Miami.
Okay.
My sister would go in the morning. It was the height of COVID in 2021. Everyone had a mask, one person in a room at a time only. My mom would busy be doing stuff during the day, getting doctor appointments, whatever. She would be there the afternoon. My sister had kids, so she would do 2 hours with my dad in the morning. And then it was my shift. Every day for 3 or 4 months, I would spend 2 hours with my dying father. And he was a very frail man at this point. And at the end of the day, if we're all lucky enough, we get to live to be a very old person. And we're probably going to be very frail and weak physically, mentally, emotionally. He would cry easily. He knew his days were numbered. And while we can, we need to do while we can. Caring about other people. There's no small people. There's famous people, celebrities, but at the end of the day, if they're lucky enough, they'll be old and gray, and no one will barely recognize them. And so, while we're here, we're as coaches, we're first in the business to inspire. But the other thing I say, my partner Henry Abbott at Troop knows this well, and my wife does too. My favorite word is decency. Mm-hmm. It's a meaningful word to me for a few different reasons, but it needs to inform us more than anything else. I don't know that every NBA player I've had, and again, I think I've had 99 now. It's right around there. I don't know they all think I'm the greatest coach ever, but I think every one of them would say I'm a decent man. Mm-hmm. Many of them have told me they respect the way I talk about my wife and my children. I want that. I want them to value that. Some of them didn't come from homes with two parents that love each other and are sweet to each other. My wife and I still kiss, not romantically, but we kiss each other. We say hello. We say I love you all the time. I say it to my kids every day we talk. I love you. They say it back to me. I want my players see that. They know that. Mm-hmm. And decency is something we all can control. And quite frankly, in the political climate we live in now, where one party is just really, they badmouth decency as if it's a sign of weakness. As someone who's worked with minorities his entire adult life, which I have, I fight against that. I will fight hard against that. And decency dictates that. It forces me to fight against the war against minorities in this country and against women, as if being macho is a good thing. It ain't. Not the way they define machismo. No. Right. My wife was smoking hot when I married her. When she was 19 when I started dating her, and I was the least macho person on the planet. I'm quite sure of that. I was an athlete and all of that, but there was nothing. I never punched a guy in my life except my little brother in his shoulder, because I would not hit him in the face. I'd get in trouble if I hit him in the face. He would hit my little brother in the face maybe, but I had to protect my youngest brother. So I wasn't macho. I'm still not. But you don't want to fuck with me in a game. I'm going to coach my ass off against you. And my athletes are going to take your head off if you come at me when I was coaching anyway.
I love that.
Yeah, there's a right way to do it, and you're doing it the right way. I appreciate that as a human being.
Thank you. And something that I would tag along with that is, being authentic. And, that decency word for you, being authentic, that's a word that really resonates with me. And your players being able to have that authentic relationship where you know who you are inside basketball, inside work, and outside of that, I feel like that carries more value and weight than a lot of other things do in life. So I really appreciate, that insight and, sharing a little bit about, home and growing up, because it's not easy for everybody. But I have one question before we get into the current NBA, just a little bit more about, your public speaking and mentorship and those abilities. So what does it take to, become an elite performer in life? And how do you optimize yourself to fast track your personal and professional growth?
That's a fantastic question. For me, and I'll just use what I use when I speak to people, when I especially when I'm coaching these, the world's best players. I feel like most players and people don't have a plan. Mm-hmm. And so I'm a big believer in having a plan. Most basketball players are just hooping.
Yeah. And
they don't really have a plan. They might develop one as they get older, but what our aim at the Pro Training Center is to greatly enhance your ability to impact the game. You might learn how to play in 5 years, and you're getting a middling contract, or 3 years, but we want to do it in 3 months, if possible. We do that by formulating a plan, a strategy to be more effective in the game. How do we practice that each day to be better in the game? How do we adhere to that plan and pivot the plan when we need to? For example, you start shooting great, teams start chasing you out earlier, closing you out, running you off the line. What do we do? What do we get? Shot fake side dribble, shot fake attack, quick attack, all these things. And so I feel like it's the same thing with business. Like I said, the Pro Training Center recruiting business we're starting, I have people trying to give us money right now. What I mean by that is they want to invest in the idea and scale up right away. Well, that's not my plan. Okay. Maybe I'm wrong, but I have a plan, which is we're going to make a food truck. We're just going to sell out of this truck. Keep it simple.
Yep.
Just my partner and I. Let's figure out everything about this business where we can control it and not shortchange anyone's experience. Let's make sure everyone gets what they want. Let's figure out how we did it. We've been doing it for free all this time. Let's work all the other kinks out. And then if we choose to, we can scale up. That's our plan. I wrote a business plan for it. Many pages long, detailing every single thing. My books that I write, the first one that I published, I wrote the chapters first, the chapter headlines. So let's say I was going to write about layups. It was just called Layups and whatever name it was. And then once I had the chapter, then I started filling in the details of it. I've written a couple of screenplays, same idea. I've got the basic ideas outlined, and then I fill in the gaps. When I am working with players individually, like let's say, for example, I have a player about to play the Boston Celtics. Okay, so what are you going to do when Jason Tatum posts you up at the nail? What are you going to do in 2-on-1 situations where Marcus Smart's the one guy back or Derek White? How are you going to protect the ball from them? Because they're going to try to strip it from you.
For sure.
How are you dealing with Jaylen Brown's bull rushes in transition? Right? So these are all questions. So we write them down. Then I go to the film room. I go to the data. And then I start answering them. And then I give that information to the player. This is how we do it. If I'm advising a young person how to coach at the next level, whatever level that is, we start going, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are you doing in the offseason to build your network? How are you connecting with players so that you can maybe have a player vouch for you? When Ryan Pannone got the job with the Pelicans, my longtime assistant, I would love to tell you it's because I called David Griffin the president. But it's probably because he coached Amari Stoudemire in Jerusalem. And Amari called David Griffin. I'd love to say that I had that kind of power, but it was probably Amari. When Amari said, this cat is an amazing coach, what does it matter what I think? He didn't coach me. So how do your players speak about you matters, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So to me, in any walk of life, have a plan and then have a purpose. So what's your plan? What's your purpose each day? And I think you're a lot, as I tell my daughter all the time, my daughter, her plan, she's 21, but she ain't going to be late to anything. She's going to be early, and she's going to be willing to stay late. So that's in her plan. I'm going to come early. I'm going to be willing to stay late. I'm going to have a smile on my face and work my ass off. You're already better than most. She did her first ever big-time internship for her career, and she killed it. And I think it was mostly because she showed up early. She stayed late. Now, she didn't sleep very much. She was tired. But she helps run a sorority. Same thing. She shows up early. She stays late. She grinds it out. You know, she'll learn the other stuff over time. She's just 21. But I think having that plan really helps a lot.
For sure. And, you know, something to just add along with that, something that you know, I always, you know, just kind of keep in the back of my head is failing to prepare is preparing to fail. You know, preparation is so important, you know, through everything that you do, whether it's work, whether it's a hobby, a passion, and anything that it is. In life, you know, you need to have a plan. When do you want to have a house? Do you want to have a family? What does it take to, you know, really, you know, start pursuing all of that and actually making it reality? Action is so important, you know, along with preparation, but without properly preparing, that action is going to fall short, in my belief.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. Thank you, David. And, you know, once again, you know, for sharing everything, you know, with your daughter, I appreciate that. But, David, now we're going to talk, you know, current NBA. I know you were excited to talk about this, and I'm excited to talk about it with you. So I have to start, you know, the first question. I'm a Celtics fan. I'm from Boston. Last year I was at the finals, and Golden State kicked our butt. I took my girlfriend to a game. We've been dating since we were seniors in high school. So since 17 years old, 26 now. So going on a pretty long time. For my age, you don't see that often. So I value that a lot. But as a Celtic,
wait a second. Why is she still just your girlfriend?
I'm getting there, okay? I'm getting there.
All right.
I got a plan in the works, but I can't share that with everybody.
That's funny. Yeah, go ahead.
So it's all about that preparation, right? But as a Celtics fan, we have final aspirations. After falling short last year, are Tatum and Brown the best duo in the NBA currently?
I mean,
Tough
probably
question.
when Kawhi and Paul George are both healthy, they're right there. LeBron and AD are pretty spectacular. I mean, that really, honestly, Stephen, it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter, whether they're first, second, or third best duo. The reality is I picked Boston to win the championship last year, and I think if Jason Tatum hadn't played in the Olympics, they would have won. I think he crashed and burned through exhaustion. They were the better team. Without any question in my mind, they were the better team. And
I love that.
And he just didn't have anything left. He was done. We've seen players run out of gas plenty of times. Steph Curry in their finals when the Bronze team won in Cleveland. Harden a few different times with Houston. Mm-hmm. So I think that if they're every position's covered. Obviously, every team needs to stay relatively healthy. I don't think the East is going to be easy to win. I think I'd make them the favorites as of now.
Yeah.
But they don't play the playoffs now. So I will tune in again in mid-April and then each series based on who's healthy. But it's fair to say they're the best team in the league. They've earned it. But I think Milwaukee and Philly are both right there.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, I wouldn't sell the Heat short either.
I would. I think their coach is great. I think Jimmy Butler is unbelievable. They're just not shooting well. If they can really come around as a shooting team, that'll make a big difference for sure. But I mean, Boston just has a bit of an edge, and I think Tatum is just spectacular. He was not great last night, so at 31.
I know.
And both he and Brown are two-way players. That's really important too. And they got Robert Williams and Horford. Corey Brewer was a longtime client of mine, and he's coaching now, and Al's still playing and starting on the best team. Pretty spectacular stuff. And I went to Florida, so I was a fan of Horford when he was in college.
That's awesome. No, and something that I really value, with the Celtics is depth. They are really deep. It's crazy that, guys like Derek White, the production you're getting, from Sam Hauser and like his small snippets here and there. I feel like all of that's, very valuable. Yeah. But like you said, it definitely all starts. Smart brings the intensity. Tatum and Brown being, excellent two-way players definitely is a large part of that. But the Olympic take, that's something that I never really considered. So that's a very interesting perspective. So
you're going to start listening to the True podcast.
That's right.
Because we talked about it, and I wrote about it.
Okay.
And you would have known, and your
right.
listeners will be smarter because of it.
You're right, absolutely. So that's definitely something that I have to get, my feet soaked in. So I appreciate that. And being able to have this conversation firsthand definitely makes me, a lot more excited to be motivated and more indulged into the game like that. But we just talked about the East a little bit. A lot's going on in the West. We got Kyrie going to Dallas. We got Durant going to the Suns. So you talked about some of the top teams in the East. I'd love for you to, share what your expectations are for, some of the top teams in the West.
Yeah. I mean, Denver's the class of the West, and they made a big trade in the summer. And I'm sorry, at the trade deadline, they got Thomas Bryant, who's probably he's definitely a starting level player, and was a starter until he blew his knee out 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Was very good for the Lakers as a starter. They didn't really utilize him very well, especially when AD came back. Yeah. A couple years ago, when Embiid was out, the Sixers got destroyed by the Raptors the year the Raptors won the championship, and that famous Kawhi corner three against Philadelphia. And that was happening in Denver, just getting destroyed when Jokic is out. He's the best player in the world, in my opinion, and has been for 3 years now. Thomas should help that a good deal. They just added Reggie Jackson. They're still a work in progress. Aaron Gordon's been out, yet they're still winning road games. Mm-hmm. Beat Miami on the road. Had a win last night in Cleveland without Aaron Gordon. They're a very good team. The Clippers, I still think have a shot. I think they finally settled on Terrence Mann as their point guard, which I've been writing for a few years about. That was the best way to go, I thought. And Ty Lue's a very good coach, and they're very pragmatic. How Paul and Kawhi do really matter a lot. The Warriors have championship pedigree, but major problems. They're terrible on the road, and very well could play Denver, who's unbelievable at home in the first round. That'd be bad for Golden State. Steph Curry's amazing. Their starting five is the best in the league, but their bench is terrible. And Gary Payton, when healthy, will help, but probably not enough. It's just almost 1% chance they can win, I would think. So I think Denver is the odds-on favorite out west, and then Phoenix is the the big question mark. I don't love Dallas. I think Phoenix with Durant has a shot. They've got two players in Torrey Craig and Josh Okogie who can be very good two-way, offensively good enough, defensively stellar. If they're not good enough offensively, it's a real problem. There's 4 and 5, and they need to find a fifth guy to go with Ayton, Paul, and Murray, and Booker and KD.
Yeah.
So they've got to find that fifth starter. I think their bench can be a little suspect too, but with Durant, they're clearly going to be incredibly productive and efficient on offense. I think Denver is a flawed team compared to Boston and Milwaukee and probably Philly. They're just not as deep. They count on Christian Brown, the rookie from Kansas. That's scary to me. They've got a couple of young players off the bench that worry me. But Bruce Brown, Thomas Bryant, Reggie Jackson are very good. And they'll probably limit to about 8-man rotation, I think, when they get to the playoffs.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. But the fact that, Jokic is averaging nearly a half assist under a triple-double, that's absolutely outrageous. And, obviously, Russell Westbrook, who just went over to the Clippers, he, was very tremendous with his stats and the triple-doubles and everything like that. But like you said, with Denver, Reggie Jackson hit, that three-quarters of the court, shot last night.
Yesterday, yeah. I saw it live.
Yes.
I thought that was a great game, that Denver game against Cleveland without Aaron Gordon, who's an unbelievable defensive player, and they won without him, as they've been doing on the road. So it's pretty impressive what they're doing.
For sure. So are there any teams that, really you believe excelled in the first half of the season but might kind of have that decline or fall off a little bit?
No, I think the teams that I like the best are who we've talked about. Dallas should be better with Kyrie. The Lakers, I've said all along, they should be winning more games. Their roster was very good to start the year. Their roster is better now for sure, and I just don't think it'll matter. I really don't. I don't think Darvin Ham's done a very good job. They beat the Warriors last night, big damn deal. Without they're just not the same team. But the Lakers, they have the talent to be terrific. Losing Westbrook is a plus. That's addition by subtraction because he took too many fourth-quarter possessions away from LeBron and AD. Malik Beasley's really good. D'Angelo Russell's really good. The Lakers should be a contender, and I just don't think they will be, but they should be. They're talented.
No, absolutely. The bottom half of those teams are being, a playing team. That's definitely not something that I would expect for them. And, obviously with the second half of the season coming, they can definitely, carry some momentum. Anthony Davis being a little bit more available now is a huge plus. But, I'm happy that you brought up LA because I want to talk a little bit more, about that in depth. Obviously Russell Westbrook was a ball dominant player, and LeBron is that as well. So you think that's a lot of the reason why that didn't really work out together? And
no, Russell makes terrible decisions. He's a bad shooter. Okay. He's stubborn as hell, and he just makes a lot of terrible decisions. He was up for a Sixth Man of the Year for a while, but he just kept taking bad shots and really terrible ones in the fourth quarter. Terrible decisions in the fourth quarter that cost losses. They had a lot of really close losses when they needed to win those games. And LeBron doesn't want the ball in his hands every time. And so it should have been – he should have been a plus player, and he wasn't. And this is – who's controlling that team is a problem. Is it Darvin Ham? Is it Clutch Sports, the agency that LeBron works with and really much owns? It's a circus there, to be honest with you. It's just a mess.
I hear you. So do you think D'Lo will help that at all, the addition of D'Angelo Russell?
He is a very good pick-and-roll player. He's having a career year offensively. He's better than anyone they had with Pat Bev, and now Schroeder doesn't have to do as much. He's a decent player, but D'Lo's a big positive there. Defensively, they've been struggling all year. I don't think that's going to change, and that's going to be the death blow, is they're just not going to be able to do it defensively. Yeah,
defense wins championships. That's so important, and that's why, obviously, I love the Celtics because I'm a Boston fan, but the fact that they're a two-way team, that I feel like that really means a lot in today's NBA. A couple more questions, before we wrap up the conversation, Coach. Obviously, in recent news, LeBron James has now became the NBA all-time leading scorer. You've covered the game of basketball for quite some time, so I just want you to, reflect on that a little bit.
I mean, Kareem was one of my favorite players. Magic was my favorite. I was a Laker fan growing up, even though I was in Florida. Because Jerry West was my dad's favorite player when he was in college at West Virginia, and I just followed my dad. The guy has always been a make the right play player, not just shoot. Mm-hmm. So the fact that he's a scoring leader and elite assists and elite on defense, I mean, I think he's the best player of all time. If you look at who was the best player over a 10-year stretch, if we looked at them in a vacuum, forget about comparisons. It's different eras. Michael Jordan said that too. I would have Jordan number 2. Like I ain't trashing Jordan for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But 6'9", at some point he's 250, 260. Unbelievably fast, athletic, that kind of score, and he can score at every level against, the illegal defense. If you played illegal defense, meaning if you had those rules in this league, LeBron would have scored even more, for sure. Yeah. Because you couldn't zone back then. You couldn't cheat towards Jordan. Jordan even said it. If you play, everyone today plays zone defense. They call it man, but it's mostly a zone. It's man with zone principles or zone with man principles. It doesn't really matter. I think he's in his prime, and the length of his prime is the most impressive thing of all. He does it in so many different ways. He's a great post player now. He's a great pick and roll player, great passer on the pick and roll, amazing in transition still. He's not shooting it well this year, and that's a real problem for them. But he's done it well enough for most of his career that you can't just lay off him. Yeah, he's. Sure. I watched every one of his games this year. He's an extraordinary player still.
He absolutely is. I mean, I'm happy that was a career, I got to see throughout, my young years and now still currently watching. And I wish I got to see, more of Jordan. I obviously, get to see the tapes. You watch.
He was unbelievable.
I
watched him from his freshman year when he made the shot against Georgetown to win the national title, and I think 82. I've been watching him ever since. He was incredible. Yeah.
No, that's insane, and thank you for sharing that. So you don't have to list or continue, but you mentioned Jordan, you mentioned LeBron, you also talked about Kareem and Magic a little bit. Are those guys that you have in your top 5 all time?
Yeah, and it's tough. Tim Duncan probably deserves to be close to that. I don't put Bill Russell there because he was a winner. He wasn't a great player. He's an unbelievable defender, unbelievable leader. I'm a huge fan. I can't wait to watch the documentary, I think, on Netflix. It's going to be incredible. But he was a 7-footer, and he was legit 7 feet tall and super athletic, crazy athletic. But he was a 40% shooter from the field or whatever it was. I mean, and the game was so different. In his era, he was the best. I'm a big Larry Bird fan. He's right there for me. I used to always say Jordan, Magic, Bird. If someone ever asked me the 3 best players of all time, my answer always was Jordan, Magic, Bird, as if it was one name. Yeah. I don't feel that way anymore. LeBron has passed them. Kareem, I probably, in retrospect, he probably needs to be above Bird. Some people have him above Magic. Tim Duncan, just an incredibly dominant, long-term peak performer. Maybe I'd have him above Bird, but, Bird was just so – I'll tell you this. My 2 favorite players to watch on video now are Bird and Magic. Okay. I hated Bird because I was a Lakers fan, but that was only emotional as a fan. I rooted for Bird in the Michigan State game. I rooted for Indiana State. And I just loved Magic when he went to the Lakers. Just absolutely blown. I've met Larry Bird a couple of times. I more than a few times, and talked to him a few times in just in the business we're in when he was running the Pacers. Loved his competitiveness, loved his passing ability. Better athlete than you realize, brilliantly smart, crazy skilled. Yeah, Bird he's in my top 10 for sure.
Love that. Is Kobe a name that's right around that range, or no, he's a little outside?
No, he wasn't as efficient as he needed to be. He's a brilliant player, Hall of Famer, well deserved, and all that. And I really wish he was alive today for sure. My son and I both cried when he died, but I don't have him in the top 10. The numbers don't support that he was a top 10 player. He's a top 30, top 40, maybe top 20. I've not really studied it that closely, but he wouldn't be in my top 10 now.
Okay, no worries. So, Coach, you talked about Magic and you talked about Kareem. If you had to pick one favorite player of all time, would it be one of those 2 guys?
So my favorite player of all time, by a gigantic margin, is number 44 for Florida State. His name is Maxwell Thorpe.
Ah, nice. Perfect answer, Coach.
Just being honest, there's no one comes close to it. As a baseball player, I have chills. The things that he did on the baseball diamond, the things he's done on the basketball court. He doesn't play much at Florida State. He chose to play at a school where he wasn't going to play a lot. He had a choice. He could have gone to schools. One school offered him 32 minutes a game. He wants to run an NBA team one day, and so he felt like being in the ACC would be the best way to prepare for that. But if I don't include family, Magic. I haven't had a favorite player since Magic because once I got out of college, I've been coaching players. And so my favorite NBA player was Magic, and then now they're just clients and people I have to study. I'm not a fan anymore. I watch a little baseball with the Rays, Tampa Bay Rays, amazing franchise. I'll watch a little Lightning hockey in the playoffs. I don't watch any football at all because I watch Premier League soccer. I actually own a team that used to be – I'm a small owner of what used to be a Premier League team. Now we're in the Championship League, Swansea City. Unfortunately, we got relegated a couple years ago. I do it so I can remember what it's like to be a fan because I don't get a chance to be a fan in the NBA. I'm just studying. And so I like being a fan,
That's awesome. So, Coach, I'm going to give you the floor. Before we wrap up this conversation, is there anything else that you'd want, our community to know or anything that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, not to just be a show for True Hoop, but I'm really proud of what we've done. We opened in 19. We're going on 4 years now. February of 19, I think, was our open date, our first published newsletter. I know that I just ran into a subscriber the other day in New York when I was in New York City. I've run into subscribers, bartenders who recognize me, just people on the streets all over the country. They'll all say the same thing, that they feel like they learn more about the NBA in our newsletter than they have anywhere else. Although there's some other really good media companies, too, talking about basketball at a high level. And they like our approach to decency and to recognizing that players are human beings and these coaches are human beings. I'll never talk about trading for assets if I mean players because they're people.
Yes.
I'll talk about assets for draft picks, not for people. These are human beings.
Absolutely.
And so I would ask your listeners to give our podcast a try twice a week, Monday, Thursdays. We taped one yesterday. And then we'll do on Monday, and then our newsletter. You can sign up for free. You don't got to pay. It's cheap, like $10 a month, and less than that if you do a year subscription. I think you'll learn more about the game. When you talk to your friends about the NBA, you'll be much smarter, for sure. You'll see the game. The game will open up to you in ways you don't imagine. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you see the stuff that we write about and talk about, so I would appreciate them giving True Hoop a try. I think they'll really like it.
For sure. Since the Sandbox fans, you guys got to go listen, subscribe, and get in tune with True Hoop and Coach David Thorpe. Coach, thank you so much for joining the Sandbox today. I know in your busy schedule, it's not always easy to accommodate to other shows and things like that, but I really appreciate this conversation. I learned a lot throughout, as a coach, as someone that's on this side of the camera, that's also, looking to try and have, some sort of a career in this. So I really appreciate and value your time. Nothing but the best to your twins, your family, and, you're someone that people aspire to be. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. I've enjoyed the conversation. We'll definitely do it again, maybe during the playoffs.
Ah, yes, that's what we're talking about. Awesome. Since the Sandbox fans, you guys know the deal. Make sure you guys stay tuned. You guys can see this episode on YouTube, wherever you stream your favorite podcast, and make sure you're following on Instagram to see some clips. You guys know the deal. Peace, love, and 5 stars.